Now let's begin. Christian Douglas had learned to read a room before he could properly read a book. Growing up in foster care taught him that survival meant watching, listening, and staying 3 steps ahead. At 36, those instincts had served him well. First as a documentary filmmaker, then as the father of 2 kids he'd die for. But nothing prepared him for the Middleton family. He met Lindsay Middleton at a film festival 12 years ago. She'd been volunteering, radiant in her laughter, but there was something brittle beneath it. Something that cracked when she talked about home. They married 8 months later, and Christian spent the first dinner with her family understanding why. Norman Middleton sat at the head of the table like a king surveying peasants. 63 years old, silver-haired, with eyes that could freeze blood. He owned 3 car dealerships across Ohio and ruled his family with the same tactics he used on customers. Manipulation wrapped in charm, violence hidden behind closed doors. Jeannie, his wife, played the dutiful hostess, her hands shaking slightly as she poured wine. Their son Corey, 34, had inherited Norman's cruelty but none of his intelligence. Daughter Sylvia, 28, competed for daddy's approval by tearing everyone else down. Christian saw it all immediately. The way Lindsay shrank when her father spoke. How Corey smirked when Norman made cutting remarks. Sylvia's jealous glances. This wasn't a family, it was a cage. The first incident happened when Victoria was 4. Norman grabbed her wrist hard enough to leave bruises because she'd reached for dessert without asking. Christian stood so fast his chair fell backward. "Touch my daughter again," he said quietly, "and we're done here." Norman's smile never wavered. "Children need discipline, Christian. Something you wouldn't understand, coming from where you did." The foster care jab landed exactly as intended, but Christian didn't flinch. He scooped up Victoria, took Lindsay's hand, and left. They didn't visit for 6 months. But Norman was patient. He called Lindsay daily, playing the wounded father. He sent elaborate gifts. He had Jeannie crying on voicemail about missing her grandchildren. Lindsay, desperate for the father she'd never had, convinced Christian to try again. "He promised to change," she said. "He's in therapy." Christian knew better. Men like Norman didn't change. They adapted. They found new ways to hurt. Still, he went back. For Lindsay. For the kids who deserved grandparents. He went back with his eyes wide open and his phone always recording. The second chapter of their uneasy truce played out over years. Norman learned to be more careful, more subtle. No more bruising where others could see. Instead, he specialized in psychological warfare. He'd promise Travis a trip to the amusement park, then cancel last minute, blaming the boys' bad behavior. He'd tell Victoria her drawings were sloppy, that she'd never be as pretty as Sylvia was at her age. He'd undermine Christian at every turn, questioning his career choices, his parenting, his worth as a man. Christian documented everything. As a filmmaker, he understood the power of evidence. His daughter inherited that instinct. Victoria Douglas was 12 years old and already sharper than most adults Christian knew. She had her mother's beauty and her father's strategic mind. At 8, she'd started keeping a journal. At 10, she'd learned to use her tablet's video function. At 12, she was methodically building a case. "Dad," she said one night, 3 weeks before Easter, "I need to show you something." They sat in his home office, the door locked. Victoria pulled up her tablet and played a video. Christian's blood turned to ice. The footage showed Norman's garage workshop. Travis was there, 9 years old at the time, trying to use tools. Norman walked up behind him, grabbed his hand, and slammed it down on the workbench. The crack was audible. Travis screamed. "Jesus Christ," Christian whispered. "There's more," Victoria said. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook. "I started recording last year. After she swallowed hard. After he locked Travis in the car trunk for an hour because he spilled juice." Christian pulled her into his arms. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because Mom always makes excuses for him. Because last time you confronted Grandpa, she cried for days. Because..." Victoria's composure finally cracked. "Because I was scared." Christian held his daughter while she sobbed. Then he watched every video. There were 17 of them. Norman pushing Travis downstairs. Norman force-feeding him until he vomited. Norman's tirades, his threats, his casual cruelty. All captured on Victoria's tablet. The last video was the worst. Norman in his study, drunk, talking to Corey. "That boy's soft. Too much like his father. Needs to be broken properly, like we did with his mother. Christian watched it 3 times. His hands were steady. His mind was clear. This ended now. The plan formed over the next 3 weeks. Christian was methodical. He'd learned patience in foster care, strategy from making documentaries about corrupt systems. He needed this airtight. First, he called Hector Nicholson, his best friend since college. Hector taught criminal law at Ohio State and had connections Christian needed. "I'm not asking you to do anything illegal," Christian said. "I'm asking you to help me navigate the system." "Show me what you have," Hector replied. They met at Hector's office. After watching the videos, Hector's normally jovial face turned granite. "This is enough for felony child abuse charges. Multiple counts. Norman's looking at serious prison time." "I want more than prison," Christian said. "I want him destroyed. Legally destroyed, or every way that matters." Hector leaned back. "Then we need to be smart. Going to police now starts a process we can't control. Norman's got money, lawyers, friends in the prosecutor's office. He could plead down, get probation. What do you suggest? Set a trap. Let him bury himself so deep no lawyer can dig him out." They spent hours planning. Easter brunch at Norman's house was coming up. The annual command performance Lindsay insisted they attend. It would be perfect. Public enough to have witnesses, private enough for Norman to feel comfortable showing his true self. "He'll act out," Hector said. "Men like him can't help themselves. They need to dominate." "I'm counting on it," Christian replied. He briefed Victoria carefully. "You don't have to do this, sweetheart. Say the word, and we go to police tonight." Victoria's jaw set in a way that reminded Christian painfully of himself. "No. Grandpa thinks we're weak. All of us. I want to see his face when he realizes we're not." "Okay," Christian said. "Then here's what we do." The week before Easter, Christian made 3 phone calls. One to a private investigator who owed him a favor. One to a journalist who specialized in exposing powerful predators. One to a lawyer who handled civil cases. He also installed hidden cameras in his own house and upgraded the security system. If Norman ever tried retaliation, Christian would be ready. The night before Easter brunch, Christian barely slept. Lindsay lay beside him, oblivious to the storm coming. She still believed her father was capable of change, that her family could be normal. Christian had tried to tell her about the videos, but she'd shut down immediately. "Please," she'd begged. "Can we just get through Easter? Then we'll talk." So Christian waited. One more day? One more performance. Then the truth would come out, and the Middleton family would shatter like the fragile thing it had always been. He checked his phone at 2 a.m. Victoria had texted, "I'm ready. Love you, Dad." Christian typed back, "Love you too. Remember, you're stronger than all of them." At 6 a.m., Travis crawled into bed with them. "Dad, do we have to go to Grandpa's today?" Christian pulled his son close. "Yes, but I promise you, buddy, this is the last time he'll ever hurt you." Travis looked up at him with eyes too old for 8 years. "You promise?" "I promise." They arrived at Norman's house at noon. The sprawling Tudor mansion sat on 5 acres, bought with money made from pressure sales and exploitation. Norman answered the door himself, arms spread wide. "There's my favorite son-in-law." His voice boomed with false warmth. "And the grandkids. Come here, Travis, give Grandpa a hug." Travis hesitated. Christian felt the boy's hand tighten in his. "Go ahead, son," Christian said softly. "I'm right here." They walked into the house. The dining room table was set for 12. Norman and Jeannie, Corey and his wife Sandy, Sylvia and her husband Roderick, Christian's family, and 2 elderly aunts who worshipped Norman. Christian took it all in. The expensive china, the crystal glasses, the white tablecloth that would soon be stained with blood. Everything was about to change. Norman stood at the head of the table, carving knife in hand, ready to slice the ham. "Let's say grace," he announced. "Family is everything. Family is forever." Christian looked at Victoria. She met his eyes and nodded once. The trap was set. Now they just had to spring it. The meal started pleasantly enough, which meant the cruelty was subtle. Norman praised Corey's recent promotion while asking Christian when he'd get a real job instead of playing with cameras. Sylvia made barbed comments about Victoria's outfit, maybe a bit mature for her age. While Jeannie fussed over everyone with manic energy, Christian ate mechanically, watching Norman. The old man was drinking heavily, scotch mixed with wine. Good. Drunk Norman was sloppy Norman. Travis sat between Christian and Lindsay, barely touching his food. The boy had barely spoken since they arrived. "Travis, eat your vegetables," Norman called from across the table. "You're skinny as a rail." What kind of man doesn't feed his son properly? "He ate breakfast," Christian said evenly. "Breakfast?" Norman snorted. "Probably sugar cereal." "Boy needs protein, discipline, structure. Things you can't provide." Lindsay's hand trembled on her fork. "Dad, please." "Please what?" "I'm trying to help. God knows someone has to step up." The table went silent. Corey smirked into his wine glass. Sylvia's husband Roderick studied his plate. The elderly aunts, May and Beverly, clucked sympathetically. "Norman's just concerned," May said. "He's always been such a devoted grandfather." Christian caught Victoria's eye. She was recording under the table, tablet angled perfectly. Smart girl. The ham was carved and passed around. Norman held court, telling stories about his dealership empire, his charitable donations, his importance in the community. He was 3 scotches deep now, his voice louder, his movements larger. Travis reached for a roll. His hand shook slightly. "Wait your turn," Norman barked. Travis froze. The boy reached for food. Christian said, "That's not a crime." "It's disrespectful," Norman shot back. "I was speaking." He interrupts. "You let him interrupt. He's 8 years old." "Exactly. Old enough to learn manners." Travis pulled his hand back, face burning with shame. Christian saw his son's eyes well up and felt rage bubble in his chest. He forced it down. "Not yet. Let Norman keep talking. Let him show everyone exactly who he was." The conversation moved on. Corey bragged about his new Porsche. Sylvia complained about her interior decorator. Jeannie brought out desserts, pies, cakes, cookies. The table was laden with enough food for 20 people. Norman surveyed his kingdom with satisfaction. "This is what family is about," he announced. "Tradition, respect, proper values." Travis, braver now, or maybe just too hungry to care, reached for a cookie. It happened so fast that later, people would claim they didn't see it coming. But Christian saw. He'd been watching Norman all day, tracking the tension in his jaw, the tightness around his eyes. He saw the exact moment Norman decided to teach his grandson a lesson. Norman's hand shot out. He grabbed the fork beside his plate, a heavy silver fork, antique, with thick tines, and he slammed it down on Travis's outstretched hand. The fork went through skin, caught on the tablecloth beneath. Blood welled immediately, spreading across the white linen. Travis screamed. The sound shattered the room. High-pitched, agonized, the scream of a child in genuine pain. "That," Norman said calmly, pulling the fork back, "teaches him to wait." Christian was already moving. He scooped Travis into his arms, pressing a napkin against the wound. The boy sobbed against his shoulder, blood soaking through fabric. And the rest of the family just sat there. Jeannie took a sip of wine. Corey cut another piece of pie. Sylvia examined her manicure. The elderly aunts murmured something about discipline. Lindsay stared at her father, mouth open, frozen in horror and learned helplessness. No one helped. No one spoke up. No one even acknowledged that a man had just stabbed a child's hand with a fork at Easter brunch. Blood dripped onto the floor. Travis's sobs filled the room. And the Middleton family continued talking, passing desserts, pretending nothing had happened. Christian felt something snap inside him. Not rage. Rage was hot and messy. This was cold calculation. This was the moment he'd been waiting for, engineered for, and it was even worse than he'd imagined. He looked at Victoria. His daughter stood up. 12 years old, tablet in hand, face absolutely calm. "Grandpa," she said. Her voice cut through the conversation like a knife. "Should I show them the video from last week?" Every head turned. Victoria held up her tablet so everyone could see the screen. "The one where you..." She paused for perfect dramatic effect. "It's already uploaded to cloud. Ready to send to police." Norman's face went white, then red, then a mottled purple. "Victoria, sit down," he said. "No." The single word hung in the air. Christian adjusted his grip on Travis, watching his daughter command the room. "You locked Travis in the trunk," Victoria continued. "For an hour. Because he spilled juice. I recorded it." Jeannie's wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. "You pushed him down the stairs last Christmas. Broke his wrist. Told everyone it was an accident. I recorded that too." Corey's smirk vanished. Sylvia went pale. "I have 17 videos," Victoria said. "Starting from last April. You beating Travis. You screaming at Mom. You." She looked directly at her grandfather. You telling Uncle Corey that Travis needed to be broken properly, like you broke Mom. Lindsay made a sound like a wounded animal. That's enough. Norman roared. He stood, towering over the table. Give me that tablet right now, young lady. No. I said give it to me. He lunged across the table, reaching for Victoria. Christian moved, putting himself between them, still holding Travis. Touch her, and I'll put you through that wall, Christian said quietly. Norman stopped. For the first time, uncertainty crossed his face. This is my house, he said. You're all guests here. You'll show respect. Respect? Christian's laugh was bitter. You stabbed my 8-year-old son with a fork. At Easter brunch. In front of your entire family. And no one did anything. He looked around the table. Jeannie was crying silently. Corey stared at his plate. Sylvia had her hand over her mouth. The elderly aunts looked confused, upset, grasping for the world they understood. That tells me everything I need to know about this family, Christian continued. You're all so terrified of him, so conditioned to his abuse, that you watched him stab a child and didn't even flinch. He was being disrespectful, May said weakly. He reached for a cookie. Christian's control slipped slightly. What kind of monster stabs a kid for reaching for a cookie? Watch your tone, Norman warned. You're in my house. Not for long. Christian looked at Lindsay. His wife sat frozen, tears streaming down her face, caught between her father and her family. Lindsay, we're leaving. Right now? You can come with us or stay here, but my kids are done with this house forever. Lindsay stays, Norman said. She's my daughter. These are my grandchildren. They're my children, Christian shot back. And after today, you'll never see them again. I'll sue for grandparent rights. I'll take you to court. You'll what? Victoria's voice cut through the noise. You'll show a judge my 17 videos? You'll explain why you stabbed Travis's hand in front of witnesses. She turned her tablet around, showing a live feed. I'm streaming this right now. To Dad's friend Hector. He's a lawyer. He's recording everything. Christian felt pride surge through him. His daughter had just checkmated a monster. Norman's face went through several expressions: shock, rage, fear, calculation. You're bluffing. Am I? Victoria hit a button. Her phone buzzed. Hector just texted. He says thanks for the evidence. He's calling Child Protective Services and the police right now. The room erupted. Jeannie started sobbing. Corey jumped up, knocking over his chair. Sylvia rounded on her father. You promised you stopped. You swore you were different now. Shut up, all of you, Norman bellowed. But his kingdom was crumbling. Roderick was already backing toward the door. The elderly aunts whispered frantically to each other. Lindsay stood on shaking legs. Christian, she said. I didn't know it was this bad. Yes, you did, Christian said gently. You've always known. You just couldn't admit it. Don't you dare take my daughter, Norman snarled. He grabbed Lindsay's arm. You stay here. With family. Christian saw the moment Lindsay made her choice. She looked at her father's hand on her arm. The same hand that had hit her as a child, controlled her as an adult, stabbed her son minutes ago. She looked at Travis, bleeding and sobbing. She looked at Victoria, standing tall despite her fear. Then she yanked her arm free. Don't touch me, Lindsay said. Don't ever touch me again. She walked to Christian's side, taking Travis gently. We're leaving. Now. You walk out that door and you're dead to me, Norman said. All of you. I'll make sure you never work in this town again, Christian. I'll destroy you. You'll be in jail, Christian said. Victoria's videos are with police. My lawyer has copies. So does a journalist friend who specializes in exposing powerful abusers. By tomorrow morning, every person in this city will know exactly what kind of man Norman Middleton really is. He ushered his family toward the door. Victoria walked beside him, tablet still recording. Behind them, Norman's voice rose to a scream. You can't do this. I'm Norman Middleton. I own this town. You're nothing. You came from nothing. Christian turned at the door. You're right. I came from nothing. Foster care, no family, no connections. I built everything I have from scratch. That's why I know how to fight. That's why I'll win. Get out. They left. The heavy door slammed behind them. Christian carried Travis to the car while Lindsay buckled Victoria in. His hands were steady. His mind was clear. Is it over? Travis asked, his wounded hand wrapped in bloody napkins. Not yet, Christian said. But soon. He pulled out his phone. 3 messages from Hector. Video received. Holy shit, Christian. CPS and police have been notified. Emergency protective order in motion. Also, that journalist you mentioned? She wants the story. Christian typed back, give her everything. As they drove away from Norman Middleton's house for the last time, Christian looked in the rearview mirror. His family, bloody and traumatized, but finally free. Victoria met his eyes in the mirror and smiled. The war wasn't over, but the first battle was won. The week following Easter was controlled chaos. Christian documented everything with the precision of a filmmaker and the fury of a father. Travis's hand required 12 stitches at the emergency room. The attending physician took photos, filed a mandatory child abuse report, and personally called the police. Detective Arnold Day arrived at their house Monday morning. 45, weathered, with eyes that had seen too much. He watched Victoria's videos without expression, then played them again. How long has this been going on, he asked. Years, Christian said. But Victoria only started recording last April. Day looked at Victoria. You're a brave kid. This is damn good evidence. Will he go to jail? Victoria asked. If I have anything to do with it. Day stood. Norman Middleton's got friends downtown, but not enough to bury this. Especially not with video. The police investigation moved quickly. Too many witnesses at Easter brunch. Too much evidence. Too much publicity once the story leaked. The local journalist, Helen Underwood, ran a front-page exposé on Norman's abuse. Other victims came forward, former employees from his dealerships, distant relatives, even Corey's wife Sandy, who admitted Norman had been violent with her too. The house of cards collapsed fast. Norman was arrested Wednesday morning at his largest dealership, in front of customers and staff. The perp walk made the evening news. His mugshot, red-faced, furious, disgraced, went viral. But Christian wasn't satisfied. Jail was just the beginning. He met with Hector and a civil attorney named Gilberto Bauer at a downtown cafe. Bauer specialized in suing powerful people into oblivion. You want to go after his money? Bauer asked. I want to go after everything, Christian said. His businesses, his reputation, his freedom, his ability to ever hurt anyone again. That's ambitious. That's necessary. They filed 3 lawsuits. One civil suit for damages to Travis. One seeking grandparent rights termination. One targeting Norman's business practices. Turned out he'd been using intimidation tactics on employees for years, and several were willing to testify. Norman hired the best lawyers money could buy. They immediately moved to suppress Victoria's videos, claiming illegal recording. The judge, thankfully not one of Norman's golf buddies, denied the motion. The videos were taken by a minor documenting her own abuse and her brother's abuse. Judge Christine Dickinson ruled. They're admissible. Norman's lawyers tried to paint Christian as the aggressor, a con artist who married into money and now wanted to destroy the family. That strategy imploded when Lindsay gave a deposition detailing 30 years of her father's abuse. He broke my arm when I was 9, she said, voice steady. Told the hospital I fell off a bike. He did it because I got a B in math. Jeannie, surprisingly, corroborated everything. 50 years of marriage to a tyrant had finally broken her silence. She filed for divorce the same week, citing abuse and fear for her life. Norman's empire crumbled. His dealerships faced boycotts. Major suppliers cut ties. His business partners quietly distanced themselves. The man who'd ruled through fear and money found both slipping away. But Christian still wasn't done. The criminal trial was set for September. Norman made bail, $500,000 cash, and immediately violated the protective order by calling Lindsay. Please, he said on the voicemail. Baby girl, I'm sorry. I was drunk. I didn't mean it. You know I love you. Lindsay played it for the police. Norman was arrested again, bail revoked. This time he stayed in jail. Christian watched from the gallery as Norman Middleton, once powerful and feared, sat in an orange jumpsuit at his arraignment. The charges were read: felony child abuse, multiple counts, aggravated assault, violation of protective order. How do you plead? The judge asked. Not guilty. Norman's voice was hoarse. But everyone knew the truth. The videos didn't lie. The witnesses wouldn't recant. Norman Middleton was going to prison. Still, Christian had one more move to make. He'd spent weeks investigating Norman's business practices with the help of a private investigator named Roderick Day, no relation to the detective, just a useful coincidence. What they found was a pattern of fraud, intimidation, and financial manipulation spanning decades. Norman had been running a sophisticated scheme through his dealerships. Fake financing, inflated prices for low-income buyers, threatening collection tactics. He'd made millions exploiting people who couldn't fight back. Christian compiled everything into a comprehensive report. He gave copies to the State Attorney General, the Federal Trade Commission, and Helen Underwood for another expose. The AG's office opened an investigation immediately. Federal charges were filed. Norman now faced not just prison for child abuse, but potentially decades for fraud and racketeering. "You've destroyed him," Hector said. They were sitting in Christian's backyard, watching Travis and Victoria play. Travis's hand was healing well, though the scar would be permanent. "Not destroyed," Christian corrected. "Held accountable. There's a difference." "Semantics." "No. Destruction implies I did something wrong. I didn't. I just made sure the truth came out and justice was served." Hector smiled. "You're a scary man, Christian Douglas. Only to people who hurt my family." The civil suit against Norman's business reached settlement talks. The dealerships were bleeding money, facing bankruptcy. Bauer negotiated hard. $8 million, he told Christian. "Split between Travis's medical fund, trauma counseling, and your legal fees. Plus, Norman signs over full control of the businesses to a trust that will liquidate everything and compensate his fraud victims." Christian thought about it. $8 million would secure his kid's future. The business liquidation would help Norman's other victims. "Make it $10 million, Christian said. "And Norman has to admit, in writing, to every instance of abuse. I want a full confession, signed and notarized. That goes into the public record." "He'll never agree." "He will. Because if he doesn't, we go to trial and I put Travis on the stand. Victoria too. And I make sure every news outlet in America covers it. His name will be synonymous with child abuser forever." Norman agreed to the terms. Christian suspected the confession hurt the old man more than any jail sentence. The criminal trial lasted 2 weeks in September. Christian attended every day, watching Norman's defense crumble. The videos were played for the jury. Witnesses testified. Medical experts confirmed Travis's injuries. Child psychologists explained the long-term damage. Norman's lawyers tried everything. They claimed Christian had coached the children. They suggested the videos were edited. They painted Norman as a grandfather trying to instill discipline in an unruly child. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty. On all counts. At sentencing, the judge was blunt. "Mr. Middleton, you used your position of power and trust to systematically abuse your grandchildren. You showed no remorse, no accountability, no recognition of the harm you caused. This court finds your actions reprehensible." 15 years. Norman Middleton, at 63, would be 78 when released. If he lived that long. Christian felt Travis's hand slip into his during sentencing. Victoria sat on his other side, Lindsay beside her. His family, together and safe. Outside the courthouse, Helen Underwood waited with a camera crew. "Mr. Douglas, how do you feel about the verdict?" "Justice was served," Christian said simply. "My children are safe. That's all that matters. Do you have a message for other families facing similar abuse?" Christian looked directly at the camera. "Document everything. Don't stay silent. Don't protect abusers because they're family. Family should protect you, not hurt you. And if someone hurts your children..." He paused. "Fight back. With everything you have. You're stronger than you think." The interview went viral. Christian received hundreds of messages from abuse survivors, thanking him for speaking out, for showing that monsters could be defeated. But the best message came from Travis, a week after sentencing. They were in the backyard, father and son, tossing a baseball. Travis's hand had healed enough for gentle activity. He caught a throw, held the ball, looked at Christian. "Dad, I'm not scared anymore." Christian felt his throat tighten. "Good. You never have to be scared again. Because you protected us. Because we protected each other." Victoria was brave enough to record. "You were brave enough to testify. Mom was brave enough to leave. We did this together." Travis nodded thoughtfully, then threw the ball back. A perfect spiral, right into Christian's glove. Inside, Victoria was video chatting with a friend, laughing about something. Lindsay was cooking dinner, humming softly, a sound Christian hadn't heard in years. His family was healing. Slowly, painfully, but genuinely healing. The following months brought closure in stages. Norman's dealerships were liquidated, the proceeds distributed to his fraud victims. Jeannie divorced him and moved to Florida, finally free. Corey entered therapy and cut all contact with his father. Sylvia wrote Christian a letter apologizing for her silence, though Christian never responded. The federal fraud case took longer to resolve, but eventually Norman pleaded guilty to avoid trial. Another 5 years added to his sentence. Christian threw himself into work, making a documentary about family abuse and how systems fail victims. He interviewed survivors, experts, advocates. Victoria helped with research. The film premiered at Sundance to standing ovations and caught the attention of a major streaming service. Travis started karate lessons. "So I can protect myself," he explained. Christian supported it fully, though he suspected his son's real motivation was confidence. The boy who'd once flinched at raised voices now stood straight, made eye contact, spoke up when something was wrong. Victoria testified before the state legislature about mandatory reporting laws and protecting child witnesses. At 13, she was already an advocate, already making a difference. 1 year after that Easter brunch, Christian received a letter. No return address, but the handwriting was familiar. "Christian, I hope this finds you well. I'm writing from prison, where I have a lot of time to think. I still don't believe what I did was that wrong. Children need discipline. The world's too soft now. But my lawyers tell me that admitting fault might help with parole someday. So here it is. I'm sorry for what happened at Easter. It got out of hand. I'd been drinking. I shouldn't have grabbed the fork. I hope we can reconcile someday. Family is important. Norman." Christian read it twice, then showed Lindsay. "He still doesn't get it," she said. "After everything." "No, he doesn't." Christian walked to his office, pulled out a lighter, and burned the letter over the sink. He watched Norman's words curl and blacken, turning to ash. Then he texted Victoria, "Dinner at 6. Your choice of restaurant." She replied immediately, "Thai place? The one with good pads CEW? Perfect. Love you. Love you too, Dad. You're the best." Christian put his phone down and looked at the framed photo on his desk. His family at the zoo, taken 2 months ago. Travis grinning with ice cream on his face. Victoria making bunny ears behind her brother's head. Lindsay laughing, genuinely happy. Christian with his arms around all of them. They'd survived. More than that, they'd won. Not because Christian had destroyed Norman Middleton, though he had. Not because of jail sentences or money or justice, though all that mattered. They'd won because they were still standing. Still together. Still a family, but a healthy one this time. One built on trust and respect and actual love, not fear and manipulation. Christian's phone buzzed with another text from Victoria. "Dad, can Travis come too? He wants pad thai." "Of course. We're a package deal. Best package ever." Christian smiled. He'd grown up in foster care, alone and unwanted. But he'd built something better. A family that protected each other. Kids who knew their worth. A wife rediscovering herself after years of abuse. Norman Middleton had tried to break them. Instead, he'd made them stronger. And that, Christian thought as he headed downstairs to where his family waited, was the best revenge of all. 5 years later, Christian stood in a park watching Travis play soccer. His son was 13 now, tall and confident, captain of his team. The scar on his hand had faded to a thin white line, a reminder, but not a wound. Victoria was 17, preparing for college. She'd been accepted to Columbia's journalism school with a full scholarship. Her essay about surviving abuse and finding her voice had moved the admissions committee to tears. Lindsay taught part-time at a community college, helping other survivors of family abuse. She'd written a memoir that was climbing bestseller lists. Her relationship with her mother was cautiously rebuilding. Corey she'd forgiven. Sylvia she kept at arm's length. Norman she never mentioned. Christian's documentary had won an Emmy. He was working on another project now, this one about the foster care system and giving voice to kids who grew up without families. Travis scored a goal. Christian cheered, whistling loudly. Victoria, home from college for the weekend, jumped up and down beside him. "That's my brother," she yelled. Travis ran over after the game, sweaty and grinning. "Did you see? Did you see?" "Every second," Christian said, pulling him into a hug. They went for pizza after, the 4 of them crammed into a booth, talking over each other, laughing at inside jokes. Normal family stuff. The kind of normal Christian had once thought was impossible. "Hey Dad," Travis said around a mouthful of pepperoni. "Remember when?" "Don't talk with your mouth full," Lindsay said automatically. Remember when Grandpa, Travis paused. Christian tensed slightly. They didn't talk about Norman often. Remember when Victoria totally shut him down? That was so badass. Victoria grinned. Damn right it was. Language, Lindsay said, but she was smiling. I was terrified, Victoria admitted. But also, I was so angry. He kept getting away with it. Someone had to stop him. You did stop him, Christian said. You and your tablet and your courage. We all stopped him, Victoria corrected. Team Douglas for the win. They clinked water glasses in a toast. Christian looked at his family, scarred but whole, damaged but healing, survivors who refused to be victims. Norman Middleton was released on parole after serving 8 years. He was 71, broken in health and spirit. He lived in a small apartment in Dayton, estranged from everyone. Corey had changed his name. Sylvia refused contact. Jeannie had remarried and blocked his number. Christian had heard through Hector that Norman tried to reach out once, sending a letter to Travis's school. The principal, familiar with the restraining order, forwarded it to police. Norman got a warning. He never tried again. Christian didn't feel vindicated. He felt nothing about Norman Middleton at all. The man was irrelevant. A cautionary tale, a name in old news articles, nothing more. What mattered was this: pizza on Friday nights, Victoria's college plans, Travis's soccer games, Lindsay's growing confidence, building a life, a real life, with people who loved each other without conditions or cruelty. Dad, Travis asked, can we get ice cream after this? It's November. It's freezing. Ice cream is year-round. Christian laughed. Sure. Why not? They bundled up after pizza and walked to the ice cream shop 3 blocks away. The city was decorated for Thanksgiving, lights strung between street lamps. Travis and Victoria argued about flavors. Lindsay took Christian's hand. We made it, she said quietly. We did. I couldn't have done it without you. I was so weak. You were conditioned, Christian interrupted. There's a difference. And you found your strength when it mattered. You left him. You testified. You rebuilt your life. That's not weak. That's incredible. Lindsay leaned against him. Thank you. For seeing what I couldn't. For protecting our babies. For being the kind of man who actually means it when he says family comes first. Always, Christian said. They got their ice cream. Mint chip for Travis, cookies and cream for Victoria, chocolate for Lindsay, vanilla for Christian. They ate walking home, breath visible in the cold air, laughing when Victoria's scoop fell off her cone and Travis caught it. Back home, Victoria settled in to study. Travis played video games before bed. Lindsay made tea. Christian sat in his office, editing footage for his new documentary. His phone buzzed. A message from the journalist Helen Underwood. Hey Christian, 5-year anniversary of the story. Thinking of doing a follow-up. Your family interested? Christian thought about it, then typed, let me ask them. But only if we can focus on survival and healing, not just the trauma. People need hope, not just horror stories. Absolutely. That's exactly the angle I want. Let me know. Christian saved the message to show his family at breakfast. It would be their decision, all of them together. He shut down his computer and headed upstairs. Travis was already in bed, reading a graphic novel. Christian knocked on the doorframe. Hey buddy. Good day. Best day. Travis smiled up at him. Thanks for coming to my game. Wouldn't miss it. Dad. Travis's voice got quieter. Do you ever think about, Easter? That day, Christian sat on the edge of the bed. Sometimes. Do you? Not as much anymore. But when I do. Travis held up his scarred hand. I'm glad this happened. You're glad. Not glad he hurt me. But glad we finally stopped him. Glad we got away. Glad we're. Travis searched for words. Glad we're us now. The real us. Not the scared us. Christian felt his eyes burn. He pulled Travis into a fierce hug. I'm glad too, he said. So damn glad. Love you, Dad. Love you more than anything in this world. He tucked Travis in, kissed his forehead, turned out the light. In the hallway, he passed Victoria's room. She was on the phone with a friend, talking about college essays and boys and normal 17-year-old stuff. Downstairs, Lindsay was reading in bed. Christian changed and slipped under the covers beside her. Good day, she asked. Perfect day. They turned off the lights. In the darkness, Christian thought about the boy he'd been, alone in foster care, wondering if anyone would ever choose him. Wondering if he'd ever belong anywhere. He'd built something better than belonging. He'd built a family worth fighting for. And when that family was threatened, he'd fought with everything he had. Norman Middleton thought he was untouchable, thought his money and power made him invincible, thought Christian, the foster kid with no connections, was too weak to matter. Norman was wrong. About everything. Christian Douglas had learned something essential in those hard years growing up. Survivors know how to fight. They know how to endure. They know that winning isn't about being the strongest or the richest or the most connected. Winning is about being willing to do what's necessary to protect the people you love. And Christian had won. He fell asleep holding Lindsay's hand, his children safe in their rooms, his family whole and healing and his. The war was over. The battles were won. The monster was caged. And the survivors? They lived. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.